Welcome to a Shunned Success Story, where we meet people who have been victims of shunning but haven't stopped there and have gone on to find really cool things in life, things that maybe they were never allowed to pursue as members of, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses or some other cult group. There were a lot of restrictions placed on us, but a lot of people have been able to move on from shunning and find some things that are good in their life. Shunning is a loss. It's a loss of a life, a past, family, friends, our roots. But those of us that have been shunned from a high control group now have the opportunity and the responsibility to make sure that that wasn't in vain. People's definition of success may differ, but to me, success equals happiness. Most of us, when we pursue something in life, we're pursuing it because we think that it's going to make us happy in some way. So we put time and effort into whatever it is, hoping that it has happiness as a return. And so Shunned Success Stories are stories of people that are working to grow, to find more happiness in their lives. Obviously, simply because a person has found success in one area of life doesn't mean that they have it in all areas of life. Everybody has room to grow. But if you're struggling, listen to these stories and see where maybe you can learn something from what someone else was able to do and find a place where you can fit that into some segment of your own life. It might not even be in pursuit of the same thing as the guest that we talked to. We've all been through some similar things in being shunned, and where we go from that point is where we're going to find differences. But that's okay. This is where we learn, where we grow. So, maybe you can find something in your own life that you can take away from this, that you can use to better your own life as we all just try to be happy and find our way in our life after shunning. So let's go ahead and meet today's guest.
Hello, my name is Kelsey. I am 26 years old. I have been out of the JWs for about 8 years now, and I am about to start a PhD program at MIT.
That is really awesome. So, Kelsey, when you were one of Jehovah's Witnesses, is this something that was education a big deal to you, or was it something that you struggled with? What's your history with education?
So it's kind of weird because both of my parents have college degrees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's strange. So my mom is much older than I guess a mother of a 26-year-old would be. She's about 80 now. And she went to college. She was one of the first people in her family to go to college. She fought in the civil rights movement. She had a lot of vigor in them when she was a young woman. And I honestly think that it was the disappointment of seeing the things that she was fighting for not become realities that motivated her to become a Jehovah's Witness, because that was how she was going to actually be able to see a better world that she always wanted.
Right.
And my dad just went along because my mom did it, to be honest with you.
What was their educational background? I mean, you said that they both went to college. Do they have degrees in?
So my dad has a law degree, and my mom, I think she went for psychology, and she became a teacher.
Wow. Fascinating to have a psychology degree inside the organization. That would be interesting. The psychology.
She always got into trouble. She always was in trouble. She always talked too much. The elders were always pulling her into an office. It was very interesting. And my dad actually wasn't able to become a ministerial servant or an elder for a while because of her.
I bet.
I don't know. She had a hard time. She liked the idea of the JWs, but she had a hard time living the life.
Mm-hmm.
And even when she got us, I think once she got us kids, because we're all adopted, it was better. She was better as a JW because she had kids to be a good example for, but it was still always very difficult for her. And to this day, I don't think she's a very good JW because she will call us and she'll talk to me sometimes, and then she'll feel bad about it and vanish for a month. And then she'll pick up the phone and try to get me to go to a meeting.
Right. There's definitely some psychology to that.
Yeah, definitely.
So what was your educational background being one of Jehovah's Witnesses?
So my mom wanted to homeschool us because she hated public schools, and she wanted us not to get distracted by worldly kids and a secular education. But at the same time, she kind of valued, I don't know, us seeming smart. So on one hand, we always read like classical literature and watched like documentaries on PBS, but then never really put any time into learning like math or grammar or like basic things you need to be a human being in the world, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that does. That does. So were you homeschooled your entire
My entire
adolescent,
life.
teenager career? Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wow. So
From
I know
I
a lot of
never
witnesses homeschool, maybe starting in high school or middle school, but you went all the way. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And so I guess on one hand it was cool because I got to just like watch TV all day
Hmm.
and I don't know, play with toys and read the books that I liked. And I had siblings, so we always had fun. But then as I got older, it was just like you start to see the differences between yourself and other people. And like the smallest things become like huge spots for anxiety. So being a JW, you can talk well because your whole life is talking to people. You can read well because your whole life is like reading literature and talking about that literature. But then if you cannot write down a complete sentence or do a basic math problem, then all of a sudden that gap between like the knowledge people think you have and the practical knowledge you should have, I don't know, that becomes visible and very stressful.
Yeah. I bet you have a lot of imposter syndrome because of that.
Oh, it was there for a minute, for sure.
Yeah.
And just the general fear that someone was going to ask me to like, especially once I got able to write down something on a board. I mean, I just learned the difference between the different theirs and whiches. Um, and it's kind of scary to find yourself in like this super intense educational environment, but then also not know like really I say words wrong all the time, and then it's worrisome because you say something wrong and people stop listening to you and taking you seriously because you can't talk or write as well as everyone else. So yeah, a lot of imposter syndrome there that I had to deal with, especially at first.
So you're homeschooled. Do you graduate or do you get your GED? Where do you go from your homeschooled environment?
So I ran away from home when I turned 18,
Hmm.
and I got my GED eventually later on that year. Mostly because I have an older sister, and she refused to help me financially because I had nowhere to live, and I had nothing. And she made a bargain that the only way that she would help me is if I got at least my GED. That way I could get a job. And that was a terrible process because I went to like two GED classes just to like learn how to take the test.
Right.
Um, and that was like it was a really hard experience until I found the secret for me, which was helping other people. Because I couldn't learn anything. I didn't know how to study, like actually study things. Because as a JW for so long, I think you kind of learn how to do it, and then it's like second nature, and you can get by. You can comment at a meeting without actually reading anything after a while. I don't know
Yeah.
if you think that's true, but you can just like skate by.
Yeah. And if not that, the questions are so infantilized, or
Hmm.
the audience is so infantilized that the questions are so easy. A trained monkey could answer them because I mean you're literally just finding, the question often is part of a sentence stem inside the paragraph, and you can just find that and complete the sentence, and you have the answer. So they don't really teach you how to study really well.
Not at all. Yeah, because the answer to the question is like the first or last sentence in
Yep,
every pair, and like the pair. Yeah, that's it.
they lead you right to
It's so
it.
yeah. So then kind of going from the hall environment where, I was always answering questions well and I felt good about myself to like going into the real world and realizing that I did not know how to do anything. Like again, that realization that there's another level where I need to work and improve my skills and that I had like these big gaps in my abilities. That was rough, but I started helping other students in class, and that's where I became stronger. Um, I learned to help others. That I think is like a strong suit. So just being able to talk to people,
Hmm.
to other students, and have a conversation, um, and to kind of work through problems out loud with people and like show people things. All of a sudden, stuff started to click for me.
Oh, that's awesome. So now that was in the GED classes where you started to experience that?
Yes.
Awesome. And so how'd you do on your GED? Did you were you nervous about taking that test? I mean, you had a lot riding on it, didn't you?
Um, I did, but I think at the same time because I was so young and so kind of, I don't know, it's such a strange feeling, and you probably have experienced this as well. Like when you just get out of the JWs, it's almost like you're not really seeing reality still.
Mm, yeah.
And I don't know, and also being so young, nothing like I had to take a test and I had to study and I did a lot to work and keep up with my peers in class, but still like a lot of the larger meaning for myself. Um, there's still a bit of a disconnect, and I can see it now looking back.
Right.
But in the moment, I don't know. I just kind of felt like I was like bouncing along in my own little like fantasy world. Um, and I needed more life to happen before I could snap out of it.
Oh, sure. You're
And
you're just
rough.
trying to survive. You don't really have time to sit back and enjoy the journey. You're just trying to get by from one day to the next.
Yeah, I was like, all right, I'll take this test and then
Yeah.
like, maybe I'll do this and do that. And I want a new pair of shoes. And um, I don't know. Like it's a nice day, just kind of not really kind of planning for a future, but very much focused on like doing the small things in the moment.
Right.
Um, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh no, makes a lot of sense. It's the small things you focus on because so much has changed in your life. So things all take
Yeah.
on different meaning as you're wandering out into this large world that you've been told to be afraid of.
Yeah, and I think especially never having gone to school before and just
Yeah.
always spending like most of my life in the house, and not just in the kingdom, but like literally in the home with my parents, with my siblings. Like we would have family studies like 3 times a week, in addition to the meetings, in addition to field service.
Oh
Like,
goodness, 3 times a week?
yeah, we weren't
Wow.
allowed to close our doors. We had to keep them open because they would play the tapes like all night long.
It's like
And
being in like a cult prison almost where you're being brain I mean like that literally sounds like what a lot of people would think of with brainwashing. I mean
it was like
people
a cult inside of a cult, I
yeah.
felt like.
It sounds like it. That's
Yeah.
pretty intense when you can't even shut your door because they're piping in the the cult indoctrination. That's very intense. Wow.
Yeah. It's so weird, and I don't even I can't really explain how or why I left, except that one day I decided I didn't actually. All right, I don't know if you have time for this, but I can quickly tell you why
Sure.
I left. And it's kind of like why you shouldn't push people too hard. My family, they moved to a foreign language congregation, and I didn't want to go.
Wow.
Um, I really liked my English language. I had friends. I was kind of starting to like make connections with people outside of the family, because for a long time we could only go places together. We the kids couldn't go off by themselves, and I was starting to do that, and that
Right.
felt awesome. I was like, oh, I'm making friends and I'm growing up, and you just want me to leave and go with everyone? I'm like 17. I shouldn't have to do that. I'm almost an adult. And then like not being able to understand the meetings, like all of a sudden that was like, I don't know, an input that was shut off. Like all
Absolutely.
of a sudden I had this time sitting there looking around, not understanding what people are talking about and just zoning out, and just kind of starting to slowly disconnect and get distracted. And I also started to get in trouble a lot by talking too much. I remember I got in trouble for making eye contact with a brother, which I thought was so stupid because he was talking to me.
Right. How dare
He
you
was
look a
like,
man in the
eye
eyes?
contact's a sign of disrespect. And I was just like, I don't know about that.
No.
It was, yeah, like I started to have that part of my mom's personality that always got her in trouble,
Right.
but I didn't have her fear of life.
Right.
So the person, yeah, I don't know. I just started to get in trouble. I started having ideas and raising my hand and talking to people and just not liking being told to be quiet or sit in the back anymore, especially kind of looking around and seeing how, well, because my parents wanted me to get married, and I was like, oh man, the brothers you're introducing me to are awful. um, like they don't know how to do things that I know how to do, and I'm supposed to act like I don't know how to do stuff to make them feel better.
Yep.
I don't know. It was just kind of like a bunch of things that added up, and then I was just like, you know what, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm just gonna take my chances.
Yeah. I think that
At the very worst, it's my life.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you run away or take off. You did get your GED, obviously, and so where do you go from there?
I got a job working at a bar, several bars, which was pretty cool because everybody I worked with had college degrees. And I was so proud of myself for having a GED, but no one else was. Everyone else was kind of like, okay, so what, whatever. And I didn't like how that made me feel. I didn't like, I don't know, like on one hand, feeling kind of smart and wanting to have better conversations to connect with people. And then people just kind of constantly pointing out the things I couldn't do or I didn't know. But the other flip side of that, it was also a very encouraging environment because college was okay and everyone was talking about it. And other people were in school or had gone to school, and it just felt like such a normal thing, because my peers were into it.
Right.
And so I decided that, okay, you know what? I don't want to work in a restaurant forever. I guess I'll get like my associates and something quick, something easy, and just, like start building a better life. Yeah, I didn't want to be a bartender, or at that point, I was just like a hostess. I did not want to be a hostess forever.
Sure.
And again, I was super young, not just age wise, but emotionally. And
Yeah.
I don't want to say mentally, but it just seems that way because from being so sheltered, I feel like I had like the emotions of like a 16-year-old,
Oh yeah, there is an emotional stunting. We came not just emotionally, but in many ways we were stunted because we weren't given tools. We weren't exposed to the things that your average person is exposed to. So yeah, absolutely, I understand that.
So like the little things that motivated me to leave the JWs and to go to school, they kind of seem so silly now. Like, I don't like being told what to do, or I'm going to show you guys I can do this too. But it was like those little childish things that kind of fortunately rubbed me the wrong way and motivated me to kind of take that next step, because it was at community college that I really started to grow up. Not just academically, but like emotionally and mentally.
Mm-hmm.
There was something really amazing about the community of other students, being able to grow up with them, being able to have professors look at you like you're a person with potential and not that you are already slotted into where you're supposed to be, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Jehovah's Witnesses have their entire life prescribed from them from the time they're little kids. You know what your options are, and that's all your options are. And so for you to be in a college environment where people actually believe in you and see your potential, that's got to be an amazing feeling.
It's an amazing feeling, and there's also this really wonderful kind of responsibility that you feel where you don't want to, if people are investing in you and they have faith in you and they're saying, oh, look, you have these mistakes and these things you need to work on, but in this area you're really good. And you know what? Why don't you, sit up front and do this or take on that responsibility, and we're going to put you in this or that group, and you should apply to be an ambassador. Like little things like that. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, they see something in me that I don't even see in myself. And I guess on one hand, that can kind of like, that is kind of a method people use to pull people into cults. But no one's knocking on my door and making me do it. I have to like leave my house, go to school, do the work, and then,
Right.
And you can take that and do whatever you want with it, because it's completely up to me what I want to do. I can build communities. I can join communities. That's what makes college and what makes school so exciting. Is that if you have the drive, then you can create something awesome and new and connect with people and help people.
Yeah, and obviously helping was right in your wheelhouse. That's kind of what you enjoyed and what helped you to learn as well. So that's a natural path, it seems like, for you.
Yeah. At community college, I was a student ambassador, which was awesome. I, helped with orientation. Actually, that was my first time really leading people, is that I volunteered to help organize student orientation. So the lady, she gave me like a clipboard and a pen, and she said, Kelsey, figure out the schedules, tell everybody what to do. You're in charge of this. And I was like, what? That's crazy.
Come on. We know a woman can't lead people. Jehovah's Witnesses have been proving that for years, right?
I loved it. It was exciting. That's my first taste of power. I was like, I have this clipboard. I hold the clipboard.
Now you're the new elder, and the power goes to your head, and you can do whatever you want. You get shunned, and you get shunned.
It was such a, it was amazing. Like that sort of, not just the people investing in you, but then you start seeing yourself. Yeah. You start remembering those feelings and being like, I did that. That was me. Like, what else can I do? Where else can I go? And yeah, I had this little hiccup, and yeah, I couldn't figure that out, but I turned to someone and I asked for help. I have friends. Everybody makes mistakes. It's not just me. I don't have to have this secret shame of not being able to do everything or not being good enough, because we're all trying our best and we all make mistakes and we all fail. So it's not the failure, it's what you do with it, right, and what you do after it. Which of course is a JW. It's not really a thing. It's like, you failed, period.
Yeah, you failed and you are forever labeled a failure.
Yeah.
And usually, it can even be over just a simple mistake. It doesn't have to be something huge and nefarious. It could be a simple mistake. Mistakes inside the cults carry way, way, way too much weight. And in the real world, you make a mistake, you brush it off, and you move on.
In the real world, mistakes are good. Filled relationships, awesome. Now you know what you don't want. Yep. Now you know what you do want. In technology, you make a bad gadget or platform. Okay, great. Now you can go and make something better. You got to get the bad ideas out of the way. It's so weird how the JWs just hate mistakes and failure and harp on it so much, because it's not emotionally healthy. No one's ever going to grow if they're afraid of making mistakes. Oh,
but they don't want people to grow. That's how they keep you there. If you grow, you'll outgrow them and leave them. So yeah, that's an amazing lesson. How many years did you spend in community college, and did you have a particular major?
I was there for about 2 years. I started off as a psych major, because I don't know, psychology, sure, I can talk to people. And then I got into the honors program, which is kind of amazing, because I started off in like remedial writing and math, even after the GED, still like not college level at all, not even high school level writing and math I started off with. But I got through those classes, and eventually I wrote a paper that was good enough that the honors department saw it, and they were like, hey, why don't you come and join us? I got a letter to attend. I begged my older sister for money She paid for my first semester in the program. And that's where I really took off. That was such an incredible learning experience. I remember coming home and feeling like I could like sense the new grooves in my brain growing. Like it was amazing. And just I was exposed to so many different like ideas like philosophy and history.
Yeah.
I was in study groups and we all like shouted at each other and it was such like an amazing experience.
I have to ask, what's it like as someone who grew up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses taking a philosophy class? That has to just be, to have your mind open in that way has to just be so intense.
I mean, I just remember feeling so overwhelmed by all the things I never even thought anyone ever thought of.
Right.
I was just like, it was just overwhelming and terrifying and just, but the fear, of course, is part of one of the beautiful things about it. It's scary because it's new and it's difficult and it's fun. I don't think I ever even came close to imagining like because we went through all the different kinds of like Greek philosophies and we read this wonderful book that I love called Immortality by Stephen Cave, and it's about the different myths created throughout human history to like resolve like the problem of death. And reading that book, I was like, oh, that makes sense. This whole thing.
Yep.
It's like, so society is just a way of like making ourselves feel better. I was like, yeah, I get it. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
After that, I was definitely not going back to the JWs.
No, I bet. I can't imagine. I remember when I was a kid, they used to actually they had a few articles about the dangers of philosophy. I don't remember seeing that in the last many years that I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but I remember way back when I was young, I just remember hearing about how bad philosophy was and being kind of scared of it because they were, intentionally trying to make me afraid of it. So it's just interesting to actually speak to someone who got to do that. Got to go to a philosophy class after being raised in such a rigid, non-philosophical structure.
Yeah, it was incredible. I grew up so much.
I bet.
Like, yeah. And so near the end of the honors program, I was like, what should I do with myself? And my professor's like, oh, you should apply to transfer to a different school. So I applied to Penn and I got in, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so proud of myself. And then I had to take a year off because I couldn't afford to go. I almost didn't go, which would have been really sad, but I'm glad that I decided to wait the year. I also showed up and just audited classes to keep myself like in the mindset for learning. Excuse me. Because I didn't want to lose track or lose sight of my goals.
That is awesome. That's a really good lesson.
Yeah, but also it worked out really well for me because I ended up auditing classes that I took later when I actually went, which meant that I had a lovely, and I don't want to say, I think it was definitely a fair advantage because all the other kids, they went to like the best high schools and stuff. And I definitely needed to have spent a little bit more time on that early material. So it was fantastic kind of like watching the professor talk and going to the classes and getting a feel for the environment and then going in later and actually getting graded and being like, okay, I am not thrown off. Like I know what to do in this space. I know how to be here.
I love that. Hard work pays off. You didn't have to audit those classes, but you did, and for good reason, because you wanted to keep in practice, so to speak, keep sharp, and look how it helped you. That's just amazing. I love that.
Thank you.
So then
Yeah,
I
and
guess you did after that year, you did end up getting to go to Penn
yep,
officially.
I got a scholarship, which uh I don't want to say I got it because of the letter that I wrote, but it definitely didn't hurt. So I wrote a letter saying that I would not go unless they gave me money. And that might sound bad on one hand, like don't be so bossy and demanding, but also no one knows your situation in life and what you have and what you don't have, and you have to tell people and you have to be frank. Um,
Yes.
like say what you want and say it loudly and say it again. And oftentimes people will say, "Oh, well, I didn't know that. I have this for you here."
Yeah. You can't you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take the
Mhm.
shot. What's going to happen? You miss
Um,
it, you'd miss it anyway. So, go ahead and take the shot. You might just get it. I mean, I just love how this is paying off for you. It's really good to see.
it's also I can also appreciate that the things that got me in trouble as a JW, those like personality traits,
Yeah.
ended up because I used to always joke that I was like my parents' worst child, and I was like terrible growing up. I was a horrible kid, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, oh no, well maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was just like actually a good kid, or maybe I was fine. And the things I was constantly getting in trouble for were things that kids shouldn't get in trouble for.
Absolutely. You mean having your own
And
voice and your own thoughts?
yeah,
Yeah, those don't fly in the world of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, but in the real world, those can be really great qualities. So I'm really glad to see that you had those qualities, and instead of squashing them, you were able to put them to use.
thank you. Yeah, me too. And so I guess by the time I got into Penn, I don't know. That was like, how old am I? I'm 26. I was like 4 years ago. Not even a whole 4 years. It was like 3 years ago. I haven't been at Penn very long.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm bad at math.
Oh, that's
It
okay.
wasn't that long ago. Um, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think it'll be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two things I was very afraid of leaving the JWs and going off into the world, especially once I started to grow up and mature a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and make friends and have like different communities. And that is that the world can be kind of a scary place and there are bad people,
Sure.
and you have to have like a bit of a tough skin and the ability to cut people off and to make strong decisions for yourself. So there's that. But then also, I always knew that I never wanted to be jaded or, I don't know, like fearful, or just kind of shut off from people. I didn't want to have the same kind of, I don't know, attitude that would make me a Jehovah's Witness in the first place.
Right.
That needing to keep people at arm's length, to control people, to, I don't know, to kind of classify most of the world and most people as being bad. To have like an open mind. I want to have an open mindset for like new people and new experiences, but also keep myself safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time trying to balance those two. And it's always good to listen to your gut and your instincts. Listen to your heart, not to sound like a cliche. uh, but in many ways, like, you know what's right for you. And also listen to what people have to say. The biggest decisions I've made in my life have been crowdsourced. Just me walking around to people being like, hey, I'm thinking of this. What are your thoughts? And then kind of being able to take those different perspectives the different people have and make your own decision based off of that information. So you don't have to always depend on one person or one group of people for help or for advice. Like,
Yep.
And
you don't have to do it all
you
alone.
can ask. You don't have to do it alone. People will help you if you ask for help. But then also watch people, see how people talk about their friends and their family. Like, you know, a guy who treats his mom well will probably treat you well, kind of thing.
Right.
I don't know how true that is, but you got to just like, I don't know, be very observant and see how people treat each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So did that protect you a lot?
I think so. Of course, like anyone leaving the JWs, I've made terrible mistakes, but never mistakes so big I was not able to recover from them. And every mistake I made was a good lesson in what not to do in the future.
Yes, mistakes are not permanent.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it'll be okay.
Right.
You just have to know, you just have to, I don't know, have a little bit of a distance to say, okay, well, this experiment went poorly. I'm going to go now.
Right. Yeah. This that's why when I coach people, I often use that term experimentation. I try to, because we came from such an environment where there was so much perfectionism and everything was pass fail or good bad. There was nothing in between, and experimentation kind of removes the dependence on the end result. So if you're hosting an experiment and something doesn't work, okay, you're not crushed by the fact that it didn't work. It was an experiment. It wasn't something that defines your life. You experiment with things, and if they don't work, you just redo the formula, or add something, subtract something, try again. So it makes you less outcome dependent in that way, and that's a great way of seeing things. So
thank you.
So where did you take all of this? I mean, you're at Penn. What were you studying there? Was it psych as well, or did you do something else?
So I started off wanting to study cognitive science because I hate learning online. And I think there's something about the, mainly because I hate learning online. And I think there's a better way to communicate like data on a screen with different kinds of learners. And I always thought it'd be very interesting if you could have some sort of like adaptive platform that is able to kind of like meet the visual needs of different individuals instead of like that one super boring format. But that's really just because I'm petty, because I like did badly in a math class and it was online. And I was like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to go to college and I'm going to make this better. And I also thought it was super cool that we can read words, like read these super like stupid symbols on page and put them together to make words and sentences and paragraphs and stories. Like that process just seems so weird and cool. So I started off wanting to study that, but cognitive science is it's a little hard, you know. So I got into the class. I had no idea what the professor was talking about. So I switched majors, and I decided to do something that I was way more comfortable with. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with choosing what you're comfortable with. And I decided to major in the history of technology, or so it's the history and sociology of technology. And I liked that because as a kid, we would buy like old computers from thrift shops, and I would take them apart and play with them. I don't know. I watched a lot of like cool documentaries and a lot of PBS. So I felt like I had a gist for history and sociology and technology. And that ended up being perfect. The classes that I had audited in the past, they were in that major. I already kind of knew the professors. And again, like, it's kind of funny because some of the things that you do as a JW is just super basic and you're not really going to get much out of it. But there is something about reading the Bible all the time that makes you a good reader. And my major is just all reading. So it's like, I'm going to keep doing the thing that I'm good at. And had to get a lot better at writing. But I always asked for feedback, always tried to rewrite papers, always developed relationships with professors so I could get like advice and like really go into what I'm doing wrong and what I need to do better. Yeah, I love my major. It's amazing. So in that major, I focused on race and technology, data. My own research is in, let me see, how do I say it again? Oh, jeepers. It's so funny because I spent like a year and a half on this and now I can't remember what I was doing. But my research is in the history of African American computing communities in the United States from 1940 to 1980. And my research really focuses on narratives of freedom,
Okay.
um, and using technology to become American and to like reach social freedom within the United States. Um, and that was a really cool project. I spent a lot of time in archives, listening to loud music, and just reading, you know.
Wow.
And yeah, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Um,
Yeah, that's very, I don't know, to me, it seems very specialized and niched. I,
yeah, there's like one other person I think who does research kind of like mine.
and what application were you able to make with that? Um, does
Um,
that Are there lessons to be derived from that that are used today?
well, see, that's an interesting question because it's very new that I've kind of started and put a pause on this research. I just finished my thesis, my senior thesis,
Ah,
like 2 months ago. Yeah. Um, but I find like the idea of narratives of freedom and the marketing of American citizenship to be very interesting. So this might be a weird tangent to go down, and feel free to delete this at any point.
okay.
But one of the things I've been really interested in is kind of like evangelical like philosophies
Okay.
and this idea of what success should look like and what good people have. And I think there's a lot of that in the JWs as well. Like if you're a good person, bad things won't happen to you.
Oh yeah.
But then if bad things are happening to you, it's either because you deserve it or because you're being persecuted because everyone's bad.
Right.
And it's very, very black or white. It's this or that. There's not a lot of complications and nuances. And I think sometimes evangelical, especially kind of the uh, mid 20th century um, movements, because it's really fun that like Amway and MLMs and like some of
Yeah.
like, yeah, they're all connected. Like this philosophy is all connected, it's all intertwined. The idea of like going out and pulling people off the streets and bringing them into your church and then making them work for free, which is ridiculous. Like that's a philosophy that's in cults, that's in MLMs. In fact, there's like culty programmers who have to use the same methods to get people out of both groups
Hmm.
because there's such a strong overlap.
Right.
And I think like every person wants to have a good and happy life. You want to understand why bad things happen to you. You want to be comfortable and you want to be happy. And in many ways, like these religions and these business models have kind of hacked that very human need, and they market it and they manipulate it into ways where you end up working for them. And they justify it because if anything bad happens to you, it's because you're a bad person.
I don't know what you're talking about. As a
Sorry.
former Jehovah's Witness,
I'm so
I
sorry.
never saw anybody working for free or being exploited for
Oh.
their vulnerabilities or I really I
Oh my
have no
God.
idea. That's funny. So is this so okay, so where does this leave you in school? So you just finished your thesis on this. So now what's the next step for you?
I am going to MIT for a PhD program in the same field, history and sociology of technology,
Hmm.
and I'll probably finish up my research there.
Okay. And how was it, what was the getting into MIT is a big deal. So what was the process or like applying from Penn to I assume you applied to quite a few colleges. What was that process like for you?
It was terrifying. So I decided to apply because I did an event, a single event that a professor invited me to do. It was speaking at a conference. And I was one of 2 undergraduate speakers, and everyone else there was like professors and PhD students. And it was really just talking about my experience going from getting my GED to being in Penn. And the topic was all about syllabus design, but I was kind of like, you need to let students be a part of what their education looks like, basically, and have like adaptive models.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of doing that speaking event that could, like, I don't know, I felt like I really found a fantastic community that I belonged in, where my background didn't matter. It didn't matter that I didn't go to school as a kid, or that I got my GED and all these other things. In fact, those things were pluses because I had a perspective that a lot of people didn't have. Mm-hmm. Also, just kind of being respected by people, being accepted. I don't know. It was so wild. And then just like standing up on a platform and like talking and feeling the pressure and like trying to take a deep breath and then make eye contact with different people in the crowd. And I was like, oh man, I'm like not bad at this. How do I make this a job?
So what you're basically saying is that the theocratic ministry school got you into MIT.
Well, if I was allowed to be a brother and stand on that stage, first of all, I would have made a fantastic brother. They really missed out. I would have been so cool. And I love suits, so it would have worked out well.
Nice.
But I don't know. It was just like that. It was just such a completely different place to be from where I started off from. Because, sisters in the theocratic ministry schools, oh my God, I never prepared for anything I did. Because I didn't take it seriously for like most of it, especially once I got older. It was like, yeah, whatever. I'll pretend to hand you this thing and I'll say something funny and cute and people will laugh and clap and then we're done. It didn't feel real or serious,
Right.
It wasn't challenging. It was kind of like, oh, and what can we have these guys do? So they're not just sitting around. Because like the serious work is done by the brothers. Mm-hmm. And that was like super annoying for me.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. So it was just like really nice to be like, oh, wow, I can be the person on stage. I can talk. I can do things. I can lead a meeting. I can have ideas. I can participate and and to be valued. And of course, that was another moment where I grew up a lot because I started to see myself as a grown-up person, as an adult, as a person who can contribute and belonged. And from that experience, I decided to try to seek out a profession in academia. Like, how can I take this thing that I like and I'm good at and make it a job? And so I started my applications. And honestly, I did not do any of this alone. I have amazing support from my professors, from friends I made on campus, other non-traditional students. I'm actually in a group of ladies where we call ourselves women with weird religious backgrounds. Because we all have.
That's a very appropriate thing. I like that.
I mean, one of my best friends, she grew up super evangelical in like Lancaster, PA, and she was also homeschooled. And her experience wasn't like as extreme as mine was, but she also kind of gets where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
And has similar experiences. So it's really nice to have someone like that in your life. Mm-hmm. And they were all super supportive. The professors who read my many, many different versions of my letters and my writing samples, and were always there to say, hey, you can do this. You got this. You're going to get it. It's going to be okay. I don't think I would be here without them, their encouragement and support.
Isn't it nice to have people, you were talking about being up on the stage speaking and just how you felt accepted. And I think that it's so opposite of what we grew up in, to be accepted for who you are and for what you bring to the table, and to be respected and admired for that, and for people to want more of you instead of trying to constantly push you into their box and make you, fit their mold. It must just be so nice to have people who support you, who believe in you, who accept you and who have hopes for you too, have hopes of something more than marrying an elder at the top of your
Mm-hmm.
game.
Yeah. It's truly something I hope everybody can experience in
Yeah.
life, because it's a wonderful thing, and it gives you so much confidence and joy. I mean, there's some pressure, of course,
Yeah.
because you got to keep it going, like, speaking of imposter syndrome, it's just like, oh my gosh, I am here, and I won't say I shouldn't be, but I have to keep it. I cannot, like,
Yeah.
I can't just snooze on my success. It's something that requires daily maintenance. I have to keep it going. I have to keep reading and keep writing and keep working on the things I'm bad at, keep making friends and connections, and just keep trying to grow and to grow up.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's life in a nutshell. Keep
Mm.
trying to grow and grow up. I think we're all trying to do that in different ways. So let me ask you then, as a person who has basically gone from witness homeschool to MIT. I know you're going to be. When do you start MIT?
In the fall, in September.
Okay, so you're going to be starting at MIT. Do you have any advice? I know you've given quite a bit already, but any final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave with anyone? Any encouragement? Any lessons? Anything that you think might help somebody else out there who might want to follow a similar path?
My advice would be to never underestimate the value of transferable skills. That, especially if you were raised to JW,
Mm-hmm.
you have spent so much time honing, like, maybe like 5 skills. Like, all your time is on these things, and you can do something with those things. Find the stuff that you're good at, the things that you do, and, like, learn how to make them work in different scenarios and in different settings. If you're good at talking to people, if you've got, like, the quote unquote gift of gab or whatever, that's useful in life in general. People are actually very bad at talking. So be the person, be the communicator. If you're good at, like, helping people, be the helper. And apply that skill into a bunch of different scenarios, because there's always going to be things that we're bad at, but never let those outweigh the things that you're good at. Always try to find a balance. And it can seem a little bit difficult. You might want to say, oh, well, let me wait to get everything that I need. And, I'll get my spelling and my math, and I'll get this and I'll get that. I have all my ducks lined up in the harbor, and then I'll go and start life. Just start it. Because there's always going to be something else.
Yep.
And everybody out here, everybody in the professional world is like, I don't know, just running on like duct tape and bubble gum, emotionally, mentally. And it's okay if you're the same way. Just go for it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Another transferable skill that you learn from a JW is how to take rejection. And at the very worst in life, someone says no. So never let fear of rejection stop you from asking for what you want.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all that. In the end, I think what you kind of said boils down to a little bit. You can't win the game if you're sitting on the sidelines. You got to get in the game, and that's what you did. You just time and time again stepped up to the plate and said, okay. And one thing I really appreciate about you is that you've been vulnerable in the process. So when you needed help, you asked for it. And that's a huge deal. Vulnerability as one of Jehovah's Witnesses is not typically seen as a good thing. It's seen as a weakness, or it could lead to you being hurt or shunned or whatever. But if you're around the right people and you're vulnerable and you ask for help, there are so many people in this world that want to help, and that really do care. The people, the quote worldly people that we're around are not what we were told they were. We were lied
Mm-hmm.
to. Yes, like you said, there are, of course, dangerous people, just like there are in the organization. And but find the helpers. There are good people out there that want to help, and look at what you've been able to make out of all this. And I look forward to seeing what you do, going forward, going to MIT and where this path leads you. It's really impressive to see you be able to do all this at such a young age, coming out of Jehovah's Witnesses. So good for you for using the skills and talents that you naturally had to make something out of it.
Thank you so much.
So what did you learn? Is there maybe something that you can take from this and apply in your own life? For many, fear gets in the way of making real changes. But courage isn't an absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and doing something anyway. If you want help on your path to success, please reach out. Coaching people that have left cults to find more happiness in their lives is what I do. Aside from this whole podcast thing, obviously. If you're feeling stuck or afraid, you don't have to stay there. Everybody deserves a shot at success, whatever that looks like for them individually. I can even help you figure out what that might look like for you. These cults took our past, and we don't have to let them take our futures as well. Email me at shunnedpodcast@gmail.com if you're interested in working together. Many are, and they're finding better things in life. For more resources, go to shunnedpodcast.com or my other website, xjwhelp.com. That's exjwhelp.com. If you want to support the work I do, you can do so at patreon.com/shunned. If you've found success in something yourself that maybe makes you happy, whether, maybe it's along the lines of education, employment, business, something creative or expressive, finding friends, you're creating the family that you want, whatever that might be that you would define as your success, your happiness in life, please reach out. Maybe you can help inspire somebody else out there too with your story to get involved in something that makes them happy. Many of us were just never really exposed to many opportunities. So maybe you have something that would light somebody else's fire out there. Whatever you do, don't settle for the possibilities that a cult gave you. The world is open to you now if you're open to it.